We're going to be joined now from Washington, D.C. by Mana, who is an Iranian-American journalist who lived for several years in Iran. She's a reporter for WAMU in Washington. Mana is a filmmaker whose latest work will debut online tonight on Channel TV. Let's take a look at some of it.
In a modest neighborhood of northeast Tehran, worshippers at a mosque are preparing to receive the newly discovered remains of two unknown soldiers from the Iran-Iraq War.
Thanks a lot for being with us today from Washington.
Thanks for having me.
I'm very interested in the role that women are playing in all of this. Can you talk a little bit about the role of Iranian women right now on the ground, in the streets, what you can observe from here and what you know from having spent considerable time in the country?
Well, what I saw was that Iranian women are incredibly independent, even the very young ones, the 18, 19-year-olds who are first going into college. And when I first went back there, let's say in 2002, the statistic was that just over 50% of college students were women. Now I'm hearing this week with the protests going on that that figure has actually gone up to nearly 60%. So when you have a student, or rather a protest movement that seems to be led by the students, when the majority of those students are women, that should give you an idea of a women's involvement in what's going on in the streets today. Women I knew were active journalists, they were active artists, but their work was especially politicized, oftentimes, frankly, more than the men, because, frankly, the women there have more at stake, more to lose in Iran because of, obviously, all of those restrictions based on their gender.
You've made a film. I haven't seen all of your work, but I did see one of the films that you made about young women going to karate class, and I must say it was so interesting and inspiring to see these young, powerful women of really of all ages, from very young to married women with headscarves, going to this gym, which was a male gym, taken over for perhaps several hours a week by this group of women. What have you learned from your recent experiences in the Iranian community? How women are seeing themselves, and in fact how they're being seen by others inside the country?
Can I say, before I get to that, I should have put that karate clip that you saw a little bit into context, because the older teachers were obviously very empowered. They were strong women. They were sometimes married women who insist to their husbands, I'm going to maintain this hobby, this athletic career even, in karate. But the children that you saw in that clip, I mean, you would interpret that as something very sweet and innocent. Eventually, those karate-trained girls, a few of them, a minority, will transition to possibly being the morals police, the women that you see in chador stopping other young girls because of the way that they're dressed. Or, for example, if I were to be arrested in the street, it's that girl as a woman who's now armed with a rifle and accompanied by men with more rifles. She's the one who's going to pull me into the van if I have to be arrested because of the veil I'm wearing.
Very interesting, because when you in some ways it seems to be such empowerment of women, and in other ways you're saying it may be an empowerment of women to suppress other women in a very interesting, complex culture. And one of the points is Americans don't get so much of what's going on in Iran. I want to ask you a question from one of our, a tweet here from Dragon Rider 9721. How can the government of Iran claim to be a republic when they ignore the voice of their people and behave like a dictatorship? Could you comment?
I don't know the extensive history of the revolution. What I do know is that it was initially a people's revolution. So back in 78, 79, you had all kinds of people, from students to communists to anti-monarchists, who were involved in the revolution. At some point, the Islamic faction usurped this revolution and turned it into a republic. Even months after the revolution, as far as I know, people were still excited about Iran, a long-time monarchy, becoming supposedly a republic, a democratic nation. But I think the message to give to Americans who are maybe hearing about Iran for the first time after 30 years of the Islamic regime is that majority of Iranians, I would even say anecdotally more than 85, 90%, have incredible bitterness and resentment against this regime. They don't think of the Islamic Republic of Iran as a bona fide democracy. It's sort of a veil, a political veil, much like the veils that we have to wear in the streets.
And based on your experience inside the country, what would you say, and I understand this is not scientific, but what's your impression of the view?
Iranians are incredibly politicized people. Even your high school dropout taxi driver in Tehran has, frankly, a deeper, more sophisticated political sense of his country and his country's relationship to the outside world than, frankly, a lot of college-educated Americans. I spoke to a professor once out of Harvard who, a few years ago when I was going to Iran, asked me, so to what extent is Tehran like Kabul? And that really showed me how ill-informed, even well-educated Americans seem to be about Iran. But Iranians are incredibly intelligent. They're tuned in. Your provincial Iranian teenager, for me, is like a South Korean urbanite in terms of how aware he is of the world around him.
Well, we thank you very much for your insights today. We'll hope to get some of the clips of your film at later opportunity and put those on our webcast. And we thank you for joining us today, Mana Rabi. And we're going to be back again tomorrow at 11:30.